Maybe that's the key with this struggling offense. They need to get Chad Ryland more involved in the run game.
Yeah.
Cardinals lose to Green Bay 34-13, and it's not disappointing. Jay Feely is joining us for Kicking It with Jay, our weekly segment. And look at the waterfall flex there, Jay. Come on, man.
You're not in Iceland. Jared said you were in Iceland.
This is Iceland.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can ever outdo this background for the whole year. This is it right here. So I'll give you the background a little bit. We were supposed to go as fall break, obviously, in Arizona. We were supposed to go to Florida to visit my family. We were going to stay in Anna Maria Island. And obviously the hurricanes came through there, and so we had to cancel that trip. And I'm kind of a spur-of-the-moment guy, so I looked at my girls, and I'm like, you guys want to go to Iceland instead? And they had never been to Iceland, so I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we hopped on a plane and flew up here. We've been kind of going around. We were in, it's called the Secret Lagoon this morning, like 110-degree hot springs, which is just unbelievable. And then now the waterfall here behind us, and it's pretty spectacular. Yeah. But it kind of reminded me of that game, watching that game last night. Like, it quickly went over the cliff, and it was
oh. Well, listen, I've been to Reykjavik twice, not to sound like Gambo, but yes, you picked a great place to go, Jay. Your overarching thoughts on the level of concern for a football team that cannot stack good performances on top of each other.
Yeah, this wasn't just a loss. This was it was a catastrophic failure on all levels. You know, the penalties stood out to me. The fumbles stood out to me. You know, it was just everybody doing what they could to be a part of the loss instead of guys doing what they could to try and help win a game. You didn't have protection. You had injuries, which we talked about from the very beginning of the season, that you couldn't afford to have injuries because this roster does not have depth. It was much more talented, but it didn't have depth. And so you knew that you couldn't afford injuries. You saw that have an impact last week and now this week. And I think the failures from the coaching staff to get the most out of the people on their team and the talent on their team was most obvious to me. And, you know, in the NFL, it's about matchups. And I don't think this staff has done a good job of finding matchups that are successful for them. You have to take advantage of your players, and you got to put them in positions to succeed. It's not just about having a system. Everyone has a system. You have to figure out a way to utilize your talent the best of their ability, and they're just not doing that right now.
Jay Feely joining us from Iceland. First time ever we've had a guest on from Iceland, and if you're watching on the stream, the backdrop is gorgeous. We spent some time earlier this morning, Jay, talking about and look, it's unfortunate that Marvin Harrison Jr. got injured for a couple of reasons. You don't wish injury on anybody, but it also stunts his growth, which has appeared stunted already. And 6 weeks into the season, he and his quarterback still are not on the same page. And I know they didn't play in the preseason, but training camp started 3 months ago, and they've got a third of the way through the schedule with no connection. How concerned should Cardinal fans be about this?
Yeah, that's probably the number one thing I'm most disappointed about on this team this year, you know, because he did look really good in the preseason. When you watched him in the practice, you thought he was going to come on and really take the league by storm. I talked about that week one going into the Buffalo game, and you just haven't seen it. And there's been an inability to try to put him in positions where he can succeed outside of one quarter of great football. But that's where I think the coaching staff has to say, okay, let's give him routes that he doesn't have to think and that we know what we're going to do with him, get him in a matchup that we like, and just throw him balls that he can go up and utilize his athleticism. It doesn't always have to be about being within the system. Sometimes you just got to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to run on this play. If we get the look we want, we're going to throw it to him, and we're going to let him make a play. I was curious at the end of the Buffalo game why they didn't do that on the last drive. We didn't see it at all. And then you've seen that throughout the season now, outside of that one quarter, the inability to find ways to get him involved enough and find ways to let him make plays.
Yeah, no doubt about that. When you take a look now at this defense and not being able to really compete and effectively rush a passer with their guys up front, what effect is it having? Because the secondary isn't performing, and I keep getting back to I don't know how you're going to grow this culture now if you start absorbing these kind of losses in succession.
Well, what did we expect, though? This is what I expected defensively. You knew they weren't going to be able to get home and get pressure one-on-one, so you were going to have to manufacture pressure. And when you manufacture pressure, then you're going to have to blitz, and you're going to have to do things to be creative or simulate blitz. And then that's going to put pressure on a secondary that you're young and you don't have a ton of talent right now in that secondary. And so, I mean, I go back to yesterday, the Romeo Dobbs play, right? You bring the house on 3rd and 4. You need to get a stop. And all Jordan Love can do is drift back and throw that ball up in the air. But I don't understand the coverage they were playing, because if I know we're blitzing like that, I'm going to play off coverage and keep eyes on the quarterback and eyes on the ball the whole play, because the ball is going to come out quick and probably going to be up in the air. And so to have Sean Murphy and Bunting get lost and not even be able to find that ball and get his eyes on that ball at all, it was a bad play. It looked worse, and I just didn't understand. I don't think the back end was connected to the front end there.
Jay Feely joining us for his weekly segment, Kicking It with Jay, all the way from Iceland. We talked about the lack of connection between quarterback and receiver. Let's focus just on the quarterback. It's a weekly examination with Kyler Murray, Jay, as you well know, on whether or not he is the guy moving forward. And I think he's been okay this year. What do you make so far of the first 6 games of Kyler Murray's 6th year as an NFL starter?
So somebody who in the past has been pretty critical of him publicly on air with you guys and, doing games, I don't put the blame on Kyler this season. He hasn't played exceptional football, but even yesterday, he's not the one dropping passes. He's not the one, outside of the fumble where they had the exchange between him and Benson, the mistakes that have been made, he wasn't the one with the 13 penalties in this game, and he certainly doesn't play on the defensive side of the ball either. So, I think he's not why they're losing. And I still say, I mean, you look at the next 4 games, they're all winnable games. They can certainly go out and lose all 4 of these games as well. But these are 4 games that are winnable games. Mm-hmm. The Chargers game is going to be a very physical game. I don't think it's a great matchup for this Cardinals team and who they are. But you can outscore this team. This is a Chargers team that's not putting up a lot of points, and they don't ask Justin Herbert to do a ton through the air. So you got to come out and be really aggressive and try to get on them early and score points in quick succession so that you can put them where they can't run the ball and do what they want to do. But I still think getting to 4-4 is viable. And if you get to 4-4, you have the ability to get into the playoffs, but they can't afford to have these injuries, and they can't afford to have the penalties. They got to play disciplined football and not turn the ball over and not have penalties.
Jay, as always, a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for the time. Enjoy the rest of your impromptu
I thought Jarrett
trip.
was joking because I didn't have the screen in front of me when this started. Yeah, how about you, man? Get after it, Jay.
Where in the world is Jay Feely? We'll talk next week.
That's right. Take care.
You too, Jay Feely joining us from Iceland.
I swear to God, I thought that was a Jarrett stupid fact.
Yeah.
And then it actually turned out to be true. I feel like an idiot.
And that's
more so than usual.
That's one of your favorite vacation spots.
It is.
Is it not?
Yes, it's fantastic. Yeah. You should go.
I should go somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, good for joining us, even though he's on vacation.
No, it's great though, but it's also a great flex.
I mean,
hey, everybody, how are you?
Last minute, we decided to just go to Iceland. Okay.
Well, but see, that's how I ended up there in the first place. Just ran into great airfare. I'll bet you he ran into great airfare.
Maybe.
They have that layover deal too.
They've also had a lot of volcanic eruptions. So people kind of are afraid to go there now.
Yeah, for me, like an impromptu trip is I'll go to a sports bar in the East Valley.
Ooh, exotic.
I know, right?
Let me, Vinny's vacation. Let me use all the gift cards I've accumulated.
I don't even do that.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.